Good evening. Today is Thursday, September 1st. It is approximately 6:31, and welcome to the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for today. Present, we have Commissioner Travis Ney, Commissioner Lisa Milkevich, Commissioner Ned Hacker, Commissioner Michael Richens. Excuse our Commissioner Jake Pearson and Commissioner Marin Patterson. My name is Jeremy Lowry. Want to welcome all who have come and thank you for your time and attendance. We're going to go through an agenda. The first items are a review of the minutes from our review of the minutes of our previous meeting. Have all the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion to? Are there any changes? Any changes other than some grammatical changes noted in our pre-meeting for those minutes? Okay. With that, we'll open for a motion for approval.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that Plan Commission approve meeting minutes for our meeting of July 21, 2022 and August 4th, 2022 with a few editorial changes that we made identified during our pre-meeting.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Hacker to approve the minutes from meetings that were held on Thursday, July 21, 2022, and Thursday, August 4th, 2022, with some minor grammatical changes. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner Richards. All in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Are there any conflicts of interest that any members of the Planning Commission have with the items of business this week?
No.
Okay. Beyond that, we need to review have all had an opportunity to review the finding of facts for Professional Yard Services and also Ingenuity Inc.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any changes or clarifications? Okay. We can entertain a motion for approval if there is one.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the finding of facts for the Professional Yard Services CUP and the Ingenuity Inc. Conditional use permit. Excellent.
We have a motion by Commissioner Milkevich to approve the findings of fact for Professional Yard Services and Ingenuity Inc. Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Okay, been seconded by Commissioner Ney. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very well. Those motions have passed. We'll move on to our business items. Before we do that, for those that for the applicants that are here, once the presentations are made by the members of the city staff, you'll have an opportunity to come forward and to make a presentation as well. When you do that, we ask you to state your name and your address for the record. Want to let you know that your comments are being recorded, and this is a public record, and so all comments are on record. When it's your turn, we ask you to come to the podium on the north wall and speak into the microphone. If you can't hear it over the PA system, please continue to speak into it because it's what we're recording over on the camera. And we'd ask you to once you've had an opportunity to speak, we will open up for public comment. If you're here for a public comment, we would ask you to follow the same process to come and speak at the podium, state your name and your address, and limit your comments to about 3 minutes. So with that, we're going to move into our agenda items. We have 2 conditional use permit reviews. The first one is agenda item number 4 for Marauder Tattoo, and I believe Seth is providing the presentation for the city.
So this one's super simple. It's an existing tattoo business at 4700 South, 900 East. It's in the commercial zone, right next to Mill Creek, to their residential, and then our mixed use right above it. Like I said, they're already existing, so they're just wanting to move to add a unit to their business to add more booths, and that just requires a conditional use approval. So there's the layout and the floor plan. As you can see, it's a picture of the building. Staff is recommending approval of conditional use permit based on these conditions.
Great. Are there any questions for Seth from the Planning Commission?
No.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate your work on this. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come and make a statement or make a presentation? Come on up. Say hello. Remember say your name, your address. Also, please let us know if you've had a chance to review the 3 conditions and if you'll be able to comply with those.
Okay. My name is Steve Webster. Our address is 4700 South, 900 East, 41H will be the suite we'll be adding on. There's plenty of parking. Business is great and all's good.
Great. Have you had a chance to review the 3 conditions?
Yes.
Will you be able to comply with them?
Yes.
Great. Any questions for the applicant from the Planning Commission? Great. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I don't really have a question. I just kind of have a comment just to make sure we're being fair.
Sure.
So everything looks good. There was one comment by the fire department. There's no storage below the stairs. That's part of the code. And just want to make sure that you had the opportunity to see that in all fairness, so that you know that if there's an inspection, there's no storage under the stairs.
That's not to our unit. We have nothing to, I don't even know, to be honest. We don't have access to that.
Well, how does that brings up questions?
It's probably
Zach.
the unit right next to us.
Okay.
It's probably in theirs. They're a bigger thing, but we don't have any access to the underneath the stairs.
Okay. So
It'll get addressed at the business licensing stage. They'll come out and look and see.
find out who's
And if they don't have access to it, then there's nothing really that it's out of their control, and so the fire will deal with it. But it'll be addressed at the business licensing stage.
all right. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Are there any, we'll open the floor now for any public comments about this application. Zach or Seth, do we have any email communication on this? And did we receive any in writing previously? Okay. No. Okay. Well, not seeing any public comment, I think we can close the public comment and bring it back if there's any discussion amongst the planning commissioners concerning this application.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Very well.
Make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow a tattoo studio at the property address 4700 South, 900 East, suite number 41H, subject to conditions 1 through 3.
Great. So we have a motion for approval for a conditional use permit to allow a tattoo studio at 4700 South, 900 East, Suite 41H, made by Commissioner Ney. Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second it.
Great. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hacker. Seth, will you do a roll call?
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Very well. The motion has passed. Congratulations. We're happy for your business and wish you continued success. Thanks for coming down. Thank you. All right. Our next agenda item is a conditional use permit for review for Step Above Daycare. And Seth, I believe this is yours as well.
So the applicant is wanting to open a daycare at 4500 South, 404 East. It's a commercial office building already existing. It's located in the GO General Office Zone. Right across the street is Mill Creek, and then to the south of it is residential R18 single family. And then to the east is multifamily. It's just a picture of what it looks like from the street. The layout from above, and then the floor plan of the building that they will actually be in. They're not going to take up the whole first floor. It will be most of it. So with daycares, most of the regulation comes from the state, and there's a whole chapter of state code dedicated to daycares and the requirements they must meet before they're able to operate and stuff. So the applicant is working with someone from the state to meet these requirements when they open their daycare. And we listed it as one of the conditions of approval, but staff is recommending approval for conditional use permit with these following conditions. And it's the normal building code, fire code. The only additional one is that they must comply with the state code title R430, which is the one regarding daycares.
Okay. Any questions for Seth from the commission at this point? Great. Thanks, Seth. Is the applicant here? All right. Please come forward. Remember to state your name and your address and let us know if you've had a chance to review these four items and you can comply.
Sir. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Haji Gall. My personal address, right?
Sure.
Okay, 3583 South Autumn Gate Court, Magna, Utah. But the place of business is 44 East, 4500 South. So yes, I've had the chance to review the package, and absolutely, yes, we'll be in full compliance of that. So as Sept informed the commissioners, we are actually in working relationship with the childcare licensing. So from the state. So childcare licensing came and reviewed the property, and they have no issues with the property. The only thing that we have to do is to put in a fence. So that is something that we're going to be working on. And then they told us to schedule for the fire marshal to come in, do fire inspection, regular building inspection. But other than that, everything is good.
Great. Are there any questions for the applicant from the members of the Planning Commission?
I had a few just simple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for bringing your business to Murray.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
looking promising. We didn't get much information about how many children you plan to serve or how many employees you have or your hours of operation. Could you just give us a little bit more insight in your business?
Yes, ma'am. So thank you for bringing that up. Before I address that, a lot of our kids live in Murray, actually. And this school in Murray, like Highland Drive area, 4500 South, we do a lot of pickup, drop off. But when childcare licensing came and saw the square footage, they said that based on the square footage is anywhere from 75 to 100 kids. Okay, and currently there will be approximately a director, a daycare facility center director, and between 10 to 15 staff. Yes, and the hour of operations is from 6 in the morning. Clear to about, we tend to stay open till 9 because some other parents comes late. Because we have a pickup and drop off service, so parents won't be at home. We have an after daycare program at the facility for kids to do until their parents get home.
It sounds like a big facility. What age group are you intending to serve?
So we attended from infant clear to about 12 years old. Yes.
Great.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Great. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
I guess I should clarify. Sometimes we ask those questions so that we can make sure that we're providing parking appropriately and traffic patterns accordingly and sound ordinances accordingly. But because you're on 4500 South, which is high traffic volume, not residential, all those concerns aren't significant with your project. So.
Correct. So everything is going to be done in accordance with safety measures. So the where we're going to put the playground area, the fence is out of traffic zone. So it's in the back of the building. It's in the back of the building. South end. Yes, correct. There's no traffic. There's no traffic over there. Yes. So whenever the kids are being escorted, we have staff with them fully to escort them to the play area and bring them back. So there will always be supervision. Yes.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have there been any, we'll open now for any public comment if there is any. Have we received anything via email or in writing? Okay. Welcome. Please remember to state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Dustin Samuelson. I live on 4535 South Creekview Drive, basically directly south of building A and B of this property. We came here tonight, me and my wife, to address some safety concerns. There's a failing retaining wall on that property. The fence actually fell directly onto my property. We tried several times to communicate with the property owner and property management of that company. No return communication of any kind. Where the daycare play area is intended, there's already been a child that fell off the retaining wall on the multi-tenant side, and there's also been a child that fell off the retaining wall onto my property directly. With the failing fencing and the failing retaining wall, we feel it's concerning for child safety, specifically that large amount of children. On top of that, it's been eased the traffic on 45th because of the new light on Atwood. But turning left out of that property off of Creekview and onto 45th, even at 6 o'clock in the morning, can be quite dangerous. There have been numerous wrecks right there. And a lot of our neighbors actually don't turn off of Creekview. They'll go up to 5th East to turn out to the light, or even 6th East to put themselves between two lights. So like I said, it has been eased slightly due to the new light on Atwood, but there's definitely real traffic concerns, especially in high traffic volume times. Rush hour in the morning, rush hour in the evening, turning left out and turning left into Creekview it's dangerous at times. So I felt like it was pertinent to express concern for safety. I mean, we're dealing with children. I understand that there's safety guidelines for the daycare itself, but children don't always follow safety guidelines, so.
What was your street? What was your address?
We're 4535. We're the second house south of the residential.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map. Thanks.
Absolutely. So aside from the traffic concerns and potential concerns of the fencing and retaining wall on that property, there's also fire code issues. I have personally worked inside of that building with my previous job, and I would just express concern to the commission that we make sure that they meet any and all fire code, especially on the main floor. There's not as many NEC or R-rated fire codes required due to state commission requirements or regulations, but just anything that we could do to make sure that they're safe in that confined space, because the back half of that building is conjoined with a stairwell that meets the two buildings together. And I guess it's personal opinion more over than fire code, but I feel like that constricts emergency access or emergency exit from that facility. And it's hard enough to get children in a straight line, let alone in an emergency situation. So those are my concerns. I appreciate you guys hearing me tonight.
No, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments at this time? You're welcome to speak if you'd like. Just remember, name and address if you don't mind.
My name is Sky Metcalf. Address is 4535 South Creekview Drive. Again, I just have to say the safety concerns. Sometimes turning left out of that neighborhood can be very difficult. There's a lot of people that will do U-turns right there where that street is, where Creek Lane comes out. So sometimes it's very difficult to get out as is. So with increased traffic volume, that worries me slightly to get out in the mornings. And then the back fence where the play area would be, even when that wood fence was up, ours has fallen because of the retaining wall, like he said. But even when that 6-foot fence is up, part of the retaining wall, you only have, I don't know, maybe a foot between the retaining wall and the fence. So kids can climb on that wall and I mean, they can very easily fall over that short fence. It has happened before. So that really worries me with all of those kids there. I do have video of their sprinklers going off and water just pouring into our yard. And that's the reason, a good reason, that the fence fell, because of all of the water damage. I have many videos of it. So that concerns me.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Have there been any online comments or anything else? Okay. If there aren't any more comments, we'll close the public comment section of this application now. And at this point, we can bring it back for discussion amongst the Planning Commission, I believe, potentially from some questions to the applicant about fencing and whatnot. But Commissioner Kavich, looks like you have a question or a comment.
Well, of course, I mean, in my initial comments directed toward the staff, because what is our responsibility and what is the child care state's code's responsibility to keep the kids safe? Do we dictate safety around walls and fencing, or do they?
Yeah, so like I kind of mentioned in the pre-meeting, they have regulations regarding their outside space. They're not going to allow kids just to run around the parking lot. They will have to install a fence. It's their own separate fence around the area where kids will be playing. So, and they will always also be, as you mentioned, monitored and supervised. Apart from that, whenever they're going through the business license process, they're going to have people building go out and do inspections, and fire will have to go out and do inspections. Fire actually made comments. If you refer to your packet, they made comments about installing like a Knox box and sprinkler system. They've been really strict recently about bringing old buildings up to current code. They've actually been really, really good about that recently. And then on top of that, building has to go out and do inspections. We'll make a comment to the building inspectors that look for the fence, but that will be part of whenever he goes out and inspects the property. That'll just be part of something that they look at. And they'll have to, they have to address those issues before they're issued a business license. So that's how we go about handling that.
How about the retaining wall? So I hear that
That's the retaining wall is what I'm talking about with building division. We'll make a comment about that specifically.
What do our ordinances state in terms of that the condition of a retaining wall, and what are the obligations that the landlord would have with that?
So, that would largely be a civil issue between the two property owners.
Okay.
Murray City wouldn't necessarily get involved. However, with the concerns expressed and with it being a daycare, we'll bring it up to the building official, and that might be a requirement as part of any upgrades to the site. So we'll make sure that gets looked at by the building division for sure. They can go out and inspect those, and largely it'll come down to probably both property owners having to probably contribute to fixing that. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
General comment. I mean, the state heavily regulates this type of business. They are not going to be able to get a license without meeting all of the conditions that the state puts forth. So, I'm pretty comfortable with what the state is going to, the powers that the state is going to be able to use to make sure that they are in line with current regulations.
Okay.
We asked the applicant if you've had any discussions with the property owner regarding the
Yep, please do.
the retaining wall.
Thank you, Commissioner. And so yes, the property owner, we really didn't discuss the retaining walls. But what I can say here is that you are 100% correct, Commissioner Travis, right? So before we even started the application process, we had childcare licensing from the state come to the facility to inspect, to do their preliminary inspection. First, we asked them, is this a suitable place for childcare? Because obviously childcare licensing, they are pretty strict. They will never issue you a childcare licensing if it will put the kids in danger. So they came, they inspected preliminary inspection. They did that. And one of the things that was holding us up, they asked us, where would the playground be? We kind of juggled around a little bit. We wanted to put the playground in the front, and childcare licensing said absolutely not. So then we move it in the back. Childcare licensing sent a representative, the person that will inspect the area after it is done. They actually inspected the retaining walls. They made no comment about that. They said, yes, where the allocation for the fence needs to be is fine. They okay that, and I have a communication to that. So our fence is not going to be directly attached to the retaining wall or the retaining fence, because childcare licensing has their own requirement for fencing in accordance with state regulations. So we have to build our own fence, and then probably put a shade on top of it as well for the kids.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you again.
Thank you.
I had one for the staff, or just
You bet.
a response to. So the applicant, thank you. I
You're-
think we're good. Or a response to the comments from the public. We didn't touch on traffic. I think it's appropriate to say 4500 South is UDOT.
Yeah, I don't think it falls on the applicant. Well, I don't think there's going to be, staff doesn't think there's going to be impacts with traffic that will, change the way 4500 is, just because it's already a very busy road. I don't think people should be turning out. Like, that's just me speaking personally. I know there's not a light or anything. It's pretty dangerous, but we don't see the daycare impacting, just because there will be busy times in the morning when parents come and drop off. But during the day, I don't anticipate a lot of cars just coming and going because of the daycare.
So something about the type of road, and it's mandated by UDOT, and it's regulated by UDOT, how many cars are on it, and what percentage increase in cars would be affected.
I think maybe a question is, this at some point feasibility studies were done for different developments, and this was part of a plan. And will this use increase the utilization of 4500 South beyond what the original impact was? And I think the answer is probably no. But that's probably the question is if this building was full of another business, will there be more traffic because of this business?
That's exactly why I got up, is that it wouldn't have mattered. When we look at these things, we look at them as what the entire zone allows, and all the uses that are allowed in that zone. And I believe this is in the GO zone. So this could be, this office complex could be filled to the brim, with its parking and number of office users, and it would still be adequate because it's already existed. The addition of a daycare, we as staff don't believe is going to impact the traffic to and from 45th South more than the oh my gosh, I can't think, than current conditions. And then also I will state that the city engineer reviews these as well. He's very much conscious of city traffic patterns, things like that, and he didn't, I at least I don't recall, he didn't provide any comments on this application at all.
Mm-hmm. Like Commissioner McKay, which I'm sensitive to the public's comments and traffic patterns. I would agree that this use, I can't imagine would bring more traffic than other uses of the building was full. I would be very interested in understanding what we can do, if it's adding an additional condition to encourage the building owner to address the retaining wall and address some of that deferred maintenance. It sounds like, I don't know what's within our purview or what isn't within our purview to be able to do that. But I'd love to understand what may or may not. And
so that gets kind of tricky, because a condition can't be an encouragement.
Right.
A condition lays out a specific hard standard that they would need to meet. So if you were to do something along those lines, typically conditions have to be on some sort of measurable, objectivable. Wow, I can't speak. standard that so
And today it meets the ordinance, so we can't.
I mean,
have them
and-
say we strongly encourage the building owner to do something.
right, exactly. But you saying this here now, you know, you have the applicant here that can go back to the property owner and say, hey, they were concerned with this. And again, like we stated, we're going to bring this up to the building division just to do a quick, you know, run by, take a look and see if there's a problem, if there's any stability issues there. But other than that, yeah, I don't think a condition would be appropriate. But I mean, that's entirely in your purview.
Well, if it meets the ordinances, there's nothing we can condition. So
exactly,
yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So
okay, thank you for answering that. Okay, any other questions or conversations to be had about this? All right. I would echo what Zach said, and regardless of what happens, if you have any influence and communicate to the building owner, we would really strongly recommend that that they work with the neighbors to address those issues. But regardless of that, we can open for a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the operations of commercial child care center at the property addressed 404 East, 4500 South, subject to the 4 conditions provided.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Hacker that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a child care center at the property address 404 East, 4500 South. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Seth, will you please, and I'll subject to the 4 conditions. My apologies. I didn't specify that. Seth, will you do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Okay. The motion has passed. Welcome to Marine. Congratulations. We wish you success in your business. And again, would ask you to deliver that message to the building owner. Thank you very much.
I did want to say too, thank y'all for coming and making comments, because it's better to hear it now than to have people come after the whole process is done and it's too late to do anything. So, I mean, those things were brought to our attention now. They'll be addressed by the building official. So thank y'all for coming out.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, for everybody. Okay. Great. Well, that's it's great to see folks talking to each other. Appreciate that. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is the Murray City Theater renovation.
Yes. Hello. Yes, this is a request from Murray City Parks and Recreation. Hold on one second. To renovate the existing Murray Theater. So this is a design review application. You guys haven't had many of these lately. Hopefully we'll get lots more coming up. So it's located here, just south of Vine Street, directly on State Street. It's adjacent to the Jiffy Lube and a couple other older buildings to the south. It's just north of where we are. I forget that sometimes. It's just right there. It is in the Murray City Center District, zoning district. So that is... it's largely our downtown area. Any modifications, so the code states that any modifications to buildings that are listed on the historic register, which this building is, does require a design review approval after a recommendation from the MCCD review committee. So as you can see, there's lots of interior renovations going on here. I believe they're going to accommodate approximately 300 seats. A lot of that is great. It's not necessarily in our purview. They can do what they want to do inside the building. We care mostly about what's outside the building. So yeah, there's going to be 300 seats. They're putting in, is it already sunken down like that? Do you know? Or are they actually going to be building it? Okay. So it's being put back as it was originally. That's kind of the design intent with this property in general. So the existing marquee will come down, but it will be built back up as it was originally back in, I I believe in the 1940s, I think. 1938. There we go. So a couple renderings from inside. They're the proposed inside. So here you have your lobby area. You also have your seating area here. So this was the rendering that was originally done. But we found one that more accurately describes kind of what is actually being redone. So you actually have this with the Murray put into it. So it's kind of a merger of both of those things, with some cleanup on the area as well. So the one thing that was brought up in the review committee, I'll just go over this really quickly. They did vote 3-0 to forward a positive recommendation to you guys as the approving body. They did bring up the potential of planters in lieu of street trees that we would normally require in the MCCD zone. This is due to that historic nature of the marquee. We don't want to block the marquee with trees. So they did suggest, some raised planter beds and encouraged like a bench type version of that, so that people are able to sit and wait, sit outside. Maybe there's a concert going on and they need to take a phone call and they can run outside the theater or whatever. I only know that because I've done that once, I think at Capitol Theater. So the Murray City Center District Review Committee and Planning Division staff recommend that the Planning Commission approve the design review application for the Murray Theater at 4959 and 4963 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 3. Questions, comments, concerns?
Any thoughts on why the renovation plans are being built for someone 75 years old versus someone 25 years old?
No.
Can you expand?
Wow.
What do you mean by that?
Just saying, there's a group of citizens that don't want to have to sit during a concert, and there's a large number of people that can come play in a venue like this that aren't willing to play to a seated audience. And so I'm just curious why we're designing this for a 75-year-old that has their chair and a place to sit, and the band doesn't really do anything to pique these people's interest other than they could bob their head along. I mean,
I would probably refer to Mr. Sorensen just kind of on the design, the intent and the cultural use of that property. Other than that, no. I mean, the point I take from that would be, I think in this day and age, to have some flexibility for the use of the facility would be ideal. Sure.
So we can enhance the opportunities to use the facility. I also think it'd be nice if we could talk about parking a little bit.
I realized as I was reading this that I didn't even touch on parking. Yeah. So yes, I will be more than happy to talk about it.
Parking's an issue, of course, because there is no parking. We want to maintain a historic building despite the fact there's no parking. So we want to do things to address that parking. And in the report, there was discussion about using this property as it gets developed for some of the parking, which that's a great idea. My only concern is long-term maintaining that. Why do we put in place a deed restriction or something? How do we put something in place so that? So
short answer, yes, a deed restriction would be placed on the property, as this would be more kind of Jared's area as part of the RDA, as they decide what they want to do with this property. But that is, from what I've heard in conversations, is the intent is that when they sell this property, there will be a deed restriction that parking has to be provided for the theater. Now, parking requirements for the theater itself, there is a section of Murray City Code, I believe it's in our parking standards section, that states that parking for buildings that have already existed in the historic district, the MCCD zone pretty much, their parking requirements are the parking they have. So technically, this does not have any parking, so they do not require any parking. But we do understand that there will be a need, and so
there's a gap between theory and reality. And I mean, in theory, we don't want to do anything that would restrict us from being able to keep this building. Yes, but reality, people need somewhere to park if they're going to come to this building.
Yes, and that's the whole reason for the deed restriction on this property. And by I mean the city hall property, to allow for that additional parking to be provided here.
Can I ask you to explain that to me a little bit better? Just so I trust you. I just like to understand. So I'm imagining that either when the city goes to sell this piece of property, they carve out a piece that will go with the theater and not be sold with the property, or they'll sell the whole property and there's a deed that says you have to do this. And how long does that stay with the property?
It stays forever.
So if it changes 4 times, the use changes, the zoning changes.
Well,
Yeah,
should we invite the applicant to come up? There you go.
We'll let Mr. Sorensen pick that up for a little bit.
Will you state your name and address, Kim?
It's Kim Sorensen. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Murray. I live at 1297 East or 1297 West Bullion Street. So great questions, questions that we've heard from a lot of people. So here's what happens. City officials and elected officials both understand and have agreed that when this property is sold, there will be a deed restriction put on that we will have shared or parking for the theater on this property forever. Now, I can tell you that we are also working with some of the neighboring properties for shared parking. For example, the post office. The post office now rents and uses Ken Price parking for their employees. I've been in contact with them about 6 months. Nothing moves fast with our U.S. Post Office, but I'm fairly certain that we're going to be able to use their parking when they're not using the parking, which is most times because it's in the evenings and Saturday evenings. And then one other thing that I can tell you, we are working with another neighbor to purchase property. So we feel very comfortable that we have parking taken care of. And I'd love to answer your question, but I'm not even sure the direction you are going. So I would have to get clarification on designing for a 75-year-old.
I just mean that, there's a young group of people that want to stand up and dance around at a concert and not be
Mosh pit, his age.
Yeah, and not be stuck in a chair the whole time.
So that's a great question. The theater is not being designed specifically for concerts. We are designing the theater for multi-use. When I say multi-use, if you've been to the outdoor amphitheater in Murray Park, we have plays, we have children's skits, and different artists come and play. We have ballets, and we'll also be able to have movies in the theater as well as concerts. So you're right. When we have concerts, there probably won't be a mosh pit. Is that what you call it? There probably won't be a mosh pit, but there will be a variety of uses. The city has currently hired Create company called Create out of Denver to do a feasibility study on what should be programmed over there. But I think the citizens will be excited, surprised, and will accommodate everyone, including the 75-year-olds.
I'm more concerned about the 25-year-olds.
So,
I'm not 25, by the way.
I would love to say that I could mosh, but probably not. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Yep.
I was wondering, so in their process with the Create team out of Denver, can you talk to, I'm assuming you already have, but you continue to talk to them about multiple different uses, meaning I would think that if the front few rows had the flexibility to be removed or replaced, that might add to the use.
There are a number of seats that have the ability to be removed for different, for example,
ADA.
and I'm not 100% sure what I'm talking about, but there are some things that you run the sound and the lighting from the middle of the seating. So we have some seats that can come out for that. We also have seats that can come out to accommodate more ADA if that becomes a need. I don't know that we have seats to come out in the front for mosh pit, but we can certainly look at that.
Yeah, even if you were to take all the seats out and have them be totally flexible, I don't think it's big enough space for a larger concert that would attract 25.
We have 305 seats.
People, yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing is, if you take 300 seats out, you've got to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
and our storage is limited. We're really limited in what the building has, but we're also excited for the opportunity to save this building.
Can you tell us the timeline?
Yes, we have hired a contractor. So the city has signed an agreement with a contractor last week, Judd Construction. We are meeting with them next week. Their current timeline is 1 year, so we're hoping for September, October of 2023 to have the project complete.
I have two questions, and the first one's kind of fun. So, as a representative of the city, have you had a chance to review the 3 conditions of approval?
I have,
And
we're
can the
fine
city
with
can
those.
the city meet those?
We can meet those, yes.
All right, that was kind of fun. I'd love to talk about planters out in front. I think that's where we have a little bit of purview. What do you guys have in mind for the landscaping planters? And
We don't have a plan for the outside, but I like the idea. In fact, when I met with the committee last month, and they said that I like the idea of having some planters, especially with the trees blocking our marquee sign, and trees are also messy. So we like the idea of planters.
What about a water feature?
There's not a lot of room there, but
You could build one into the wall. coming out of
possible, yes.
I have one more question.
yeah,
That's not real, but that'd be cool.
And we're also we've designed the building to what they call modern architecture, which is what was done in 1938. So colors, and it'll look like it's a brand
What
new
color
building
is the
in
neon going to be?
on the inside.
The neon on
The neon,
outside.
the outside is kind of
Teal?
it's like a greeny
So
blue
that
color.
color,
Yeah.
red.
Marie,
And that
orange.
was the original color. And the inside's red and golds, and
Did they have neon signs in 1938?
They only had
That was-
that.
that was what it was, yeah.
This will most
38?
likely become LED because it's more efficient, but you won't be able to tell.
Mhm.
Ned, you had a
I have a
question.
question about the access in the rear. If you go back to the last slide, maybe we can where it showed the architectural or the design of the building. That's not it. Anyway,
Okay.
the top view was good. Anyway, there's a alley to the east. I know it goes through to the post office, but is that going to be enough for you?
No. Well, yes, it will be enough if we don't have more. But the alleyway that goes back there is owned by the post office. The city with this building has an easement for access, and we are in negotiations with the neighbor to the east. I can tell you that much.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Kim? Thank you for coming down. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Awesome. We'll open it for any public comment. And Seth or Zach, have we received any via email or any that came in notifications? Okay. Not seeing any additional public comment, I'll close the public comment section of this application and bring it back if there's any discussion amongst the Planning Commission. Yeah, thanks for your hard work with this. Okay, well, demographics aside, is there a motion to consider? Is there consider a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the design review application for the Murray Theater located at 4959 to 4963 South State Street, subject to the following 3 conditions.
Great. We have a motion made by Commissioner Richards to the Planning Commission approve the design review application for the Murray Theater located at 4559 4963 South State Street, subject to the 3 conditions. Is there a second?
May I second that motion?
I believe you just did. So Commissioner McCabe just seconded it. Zach, will you do a roll call vote?
Yeah, Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Commissioner Lowry.
Yes. All right. Well, it has passed. The motion has passed. Again, thank you for your time, Kim. Really appreciate all the work you and your department have put into this. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. It's exciting times. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is amendments to appeal authority in the land use ordinances. And Zach, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is a request from Murray City staff our planning division staff and in conjunction with the attorney's office, we have been working on and a text amendment to appeals and variances in general to the Title 17, the land use ordinance. Specifically, most of the changes come through in 17.16, which used to be called, I believe, the appeal authority or something like that. I forget because it's been too long of a day for me today. Yes. Sorry, I don't know why I keep looking at this. Appeal authority. So we're changing it to land use appeals and variances, changing the title of that. And then it also affects our definition section and then various sections throughout the code, like the MCCD and some other sections of code where there were specific timeframes for appeal dates and deadlines that we're repealing out of those sections to kind of bring everything into one easy to read language, so you don't have to, when we're explaining it to the public and when we're trying to find it, we're not finding conflicting information. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the bigger changes. So one is the definitions changes. So as we, in my role as the senior planner, one of my objectives and goals is to kind of start to comb through the land use ordinance and do some cleanup. So this is kind of one of the first sections that we started to play with. And one of my goals here is to move every definition into the greater definitions section. So instead of each chapter having its own definition section, I'm moving everything to the larger Title 17 definition section. I just think that makes sense. So so that's one part of it. The other part specifically was there were unclear description of who a directly aggrieved person was in the code. There wasn't a hard definition of what that was, and so anybody could apply to appeal a decision regardless. The state did make a change. I don't remember if it was this previous legislative session or if it was the one before that, where they regulated that to an adversely affected party is a person who owns real property adjoining the property that is subject to the land use application or will suffer damage different in kind or an injury distinct from that of the general community as a result of the decision. So that kind of narrows the field a little bit more to people that have a direct impact to that definition. What's up?
Do you want us to hold our questions till the end, or can we?
Oh, you can bring them up. That's fine.
So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if in this definition under B, an injury distinct, a damage different in kind than, or an injury distinct from that of the general community as a result of the land use decision, if that actually opens it up and makes it broader for somebody. We've had somebody claim psychological damage because it would affect them emotionally walking past a building that used to be a cherished memory for them or something like that.
And that maybe that could be the case. They would have to make that appeal in case.
I mean, would it be like a clinical diagnosis from some?
That would be something. That would be something that through the attorney's office and planning division staff and the hearing officer would have to make that decision.
What I wonder is, instead of a semicolon after or a land use decision, it's period, and if it's cleaner just to stop there.
Really, we're just using the state definition.
Okay.
This is just a carbon copy from state definition.
Okay.
So that we follow exactly what the state's doing. That's why we used what we used.
All righty.
And that's because the state could trump the city if there was an issue. That's right.
Ultra-virus.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It's a smart practice
Yeah. We just, it's easier to follow them than to work
against them.
So, especially in cases like this. So also we just, and like I had mentioned earlier, so I'm going to kind of jump back in. We moved the definitions into the appropriate section. Clearer text. So I put kind of an example here. And 17.6050, standard of review was kind of the previous section, and it encompassed appeals and variances all in one section. So if we kind of gave somebody the code of what the appeals are, or what the appeal process is, they would then look at what the hardship tests are for a variance, and they're like, well, this doesn't really apply, or vice versa. Somebody that needed to look at those hardship tests, which you guys probably don't hear much about because that's more a hearing officer thing. Just know that they're state mandated tests to grant variances. So we broke those out into two, like an appeals process and a variance process, so that those are much clearer when we go to cite this to people. And also, as we're reading through it, we don't miss something when we're going through staff reports and trying to cite code and things like that. Any questions kind of on kind of that clearer text stuff?
Nope.
Okay. So also, kind of like I said in the pre-meeting, there were a number of different locations in the code that gave different time frames of when the quote unquote shot clock started, of when you could appeal a land use decision. Some were just said 30 days, which is that calendar days? Is that business days? Is that, I don't know, whatever. And then some said calendar days, some were 10, some were 30. So we decided to narrow everything down into one section where it's 10 calendar days. That is the state, the state definition, or not definition, but that's what they had adopted, is saying it's 10 calendar days from the written land use decision. So
Do we feel like that's giving an aggrieved party enough time to get everything in line and come forward and make an appeal?
I think it does. It puts them on. So technically the 10 days starts. So for an example, like a land use decision you guys often do, or conditional use permits, the written land use decision is not considered done, and the shot clock doesn't kick in until you approve the findings of fact.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, even though you approved the two conditional uses back in July, I think, the shot clock just hit on those ones because you've adopted those, or approved those findings of fact. So yes, in theory, it should give them enough time to have that.
My question along those same lines is, so in my profession, we have 30 days to get things done, and it's always a discussion, is that working days? Does that include the holidays and the weekends that we're not here? Is that a concern around holidays and things of that nature? Should it say working days, just for clarification?
It says calendar days.
And you prefer that?
I think
You it's a
calendar
better choice?
is easier.
Yeah, calendar days is what we've defined, and what the state has defined as well.
Okay.
So we have just full 10 days, for example, for the yard services, 10 days from today. So, sorry, I was just kind of sitting there like I was.
Your office is, however, it's never closed for a 2-week period, is it? It's
No, we're never closed for that long ever.
you get a couple days for Christmas. That's the biggest break.
Not even a couple days for Christmas. It's a couple days for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But it's yeah. So at most it's 2 days.
Okay.
But typically if somebody is wanting to appeal, they're usually here at this meeting, and they kind of let us know that they're going to do that, so we can actually pull them aside and kind of explain to them what that process is. And we will have to be a little bit more diligent in that and say, you have 10 days instead of 30. So we will have to make sure that if somebody is concerned with filing appeal, that's done quickly.
Okay, can I play silliness here for a minute?
Of course.
So what if 10 days ends on a Sunday? They've lost a Saturday and Sunday.
Typically what we have done, at least I believe what the city attorney's position is that we would give 2 that Monday. But do you think how we would still interpret it in this one, or if it ends on a Sunday, Thursday? Okay, there you go. Yeah.
See, Brian's smart.
Yeah, there you go.
So just again, just from I'm assuming you've already done this, right? But I just like to understand.
Yeah.
When a applicant or resident is going to appeal, what they have to turn in within that 10-day frame, is it just a statement saying I want to appeal, or is it their fully developed argument?
So technically in this code, we do have it laid out exactly what they have to, in the proposed code, exactly what they have to provide.
I read it, but maybe I got tired by that point.
So it's in C. It would be in the red line copy. It's 16 or 17.16.030C application. So a completed appeal application form provided by the city, payment of applicable fee, and a written statement no more than 5 pages on 1-inch margins, 12 point sans serif font, single spaced, that explains A, B, and C, which is the appellant standing to appeal. So if they are, directly aggrieved, identifies the alleged error in the administration or interpretation of the city's land use ordinance, and reasons the appellant claims the applicable decision was made in error. So it doesn't take a lot. This doesn't have to be done in a long, lengthy thing. It can be done pretty quickly.
But they have to have their ducks in line because they have to develop their argument.
Correct.
In this presentation. So,
Yep. Okay. So with that, staff is recommending.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you feel will this the reduction from 30 days to 10 days, is it going to improve administrative capacity? What is it? What's the intent behind it?
One, to be in line with state code, but also it does have the potential to allow us a little bit more time, because I could think of ways that when we just kind of allow it within that 30, when we used to allow it within that 30-day time frame, they would just be up against the hearing officer deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And typically they would just rush to get that in and not provide good quality information. And so we would have to kind of go back and forth. There was a recent appeal where we had to meet with the appellants a couple times and kind of express, we need you to kind of allege the error that the planning commission made. And that was kind of difficult to kind of get, where this kind of makes people really need to think that and make a decision quickly that this is really what the issue is, or that they have a legitimate issue. Largely, we have not received many appeals. We have had one since I've been here, in almost 5 years. I think I have not seen another one. I know the one in the MCCD that was wrapping up after I got here. So, yeah, but we don't get them very often.
Understood. Thanks.
I mean, just for the record, I would be concerned that we were decreasing the time frame because residents who would be interested in appealing might not have land use knowledge. It might take them a little bit of time to understand what about their concerns are legitimate and what is just my personal opinion. But if we are, I just wanted to say that and say it for the record, but if we are falling in compliance with the state and how the state is running affairs, then I could see that could be a legitimate structure that we're trying to follow.
Yeah, and I would say also that yes, not everybody is as land use affluent as, say, us as planners, but we are available to discuss those things. And we're available every day of the week.
Yeah. And I would suggest in practice that the folks that are upset and want to file an appeal, I think I've witnessed one group decide to do that, and they decided the night that they left here.
Correct.
So I think that, I think that I don't want to discount and shortchange residents, but I think that if an aggrieved party is aggrieved, they know they're aggrieved and they don't need to think about it for a considerable period of time.
Except you have to gain knowledge to be able to state your grievance well. And I think I would think it'd be easy to feel like you were saying come to the planners, but sometimes the planners look like they're the other party.
But really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all that the appeal can be about is if somehow the planning commission we didn't procedurally we made a mistake, that could be an issue. If somehow we voted against an ordinance that was a written ordinance, it's a very, the appeals process is one that what we're doing, and we're taking administrative action in this body. This isn't legislative action. So, it's just like a situation where somebody can say, well, I disagree with the land use. Well, that's great. That's a city council thing. We're not deciding, we're not saying how many units can go in a certain zone. We get dealt that hand, and then we're going through an administrative action. So the question is
when you're doing like design reviews or conditional use permits, then yes, that's the case. That you are acting in an administrative body, and appeals have to be reviewed as what you guys as a body have been told by, through the evidence that you've heard through public hearing or public meeting, the public comment portion, and then staff report, and then your guys' discussion. Nothing else can be used except for that record. And so largely when somebody does want to come file an appeal, another example is when we received one fairly recently, is that they made new claim and new claims about things that weren't heard by you as the land use authority, and that couldn't be used as a defense or a reason to negate your decision because you didn't have that information at the planning commission stage, at the planning commission meeting. So to kind of come back to your point, Commissioner Malkevich, is that they need to do their homework before this meeting, before the planning commission meeting. And if they find something that is egregiously wrong or something that staff has missed, then they need to bring up that information here. And if that changes your guys' perception or decision or, your thinking, and then for some reason somebody, maybe the applicant said, okay, you guys erred in thinking that wasn't your place to look at that. I'm talking in very nebulous terms here, so I apologize, and I hope you're following along okay, but that's kind of where we would get at. So really, you have to come prepared at the planning commission meeting, because by the time you get to the hearing officer, it is strictly based on the planning commission meeting as we are.
Yeah. Did we not open it for public comment and pass and somehow pass something without receiving public comment? That might be an example of, well, gee, that would be a problem. It would almost be like a procedural error that was made.
Yeah.
Right.
So
should we open it to public comment at this point? No, it's teasing.
But then another example, I think there's been 2 contested discussions about gas stations in the last few years, and the first of which the residents were stating that they felt they wouldn't be able to insure their house due to the proximity of the gas station, and they felt like that was some kind of legality, and we didn't know. That information wasn't available to us. I discussed, should we put this item on hold so that we can investigate further to see if this is a legitimate concern or not. And then in the second gas station came up, they didn't bring that issue up. But to me, that would be something that could potentially, if they brought it to the hearing officer, they could say this was legitimate information that was brought up and they chose to proceed without investigating further, something like
If
that.
that first meeting, yes. For example, that was a 7-Eleven. For that 7-Eleven, yes. If you guys had approved it and then they came back and appealed and said, no, we presented this information and we feel that, and I'm just going out on a limb here, that that we feel that the Planning Commission erred and shouldn't have approved this because we can't get our houses insured or something, and provided information regarding that, that could have been possibly looked at a little bit more.
I think you actually made two distinctions there. So one, that you said that we couldn't get our homes insured, and two, that somehow it was illegal. And I think that
a legal issue around insurance.
Well, that's if you can or can't get insurance, that's not necessarily a legal issue. But if somehow there was an ordinance that says that a gas station can't be within, I don't know, 500 feet of a residence, and we approved one within 400 feet of a residence, and they said, hey, time out, this is within 500 feet of an ordinance, they would probably have a standing to be able to go to a hearing officer and appeal that.
Well, the discussion was around that ordinance existed in some cities and not in ours, and it should because of.
But it doesn't in ours, so
Right.
So it doesn't matter. But the point I'm getting at is I don't think it's incumbent upon us to run down every piece of innuendo or every piece of information. What I want to be satisfied with is, are we compliant with all of our zoning ordinances and requirements? And if we are, that's what we're here to do. If one insurance company won't, insurance is a marketplace. There's a price associated for different risks, and there very well it may cost more to insure a home, and there'll be some insurance companies that maybe wouldn't insure a home that had proximity to certain risks, but that's something that I can't imagine. And Bryant, you're here. That would be a legal matter. That seems like it wouldn't fall within the purview of did we follow the zoning ordinances and regulations?
And that's kind of why it just didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
But if we did have something, then yes, you're right. It could have been brought up. So
does that make sense at all? Or
Yeah.
Can I ask a silly question?
yes, you're full of those today.
That's my job. That's why I get paid $40 a meeting. Murray First Ward. Would the people that filed their appeal have standing with this new?
From what I understand of the appeal, I don't think they would have, because I think it was only one person. Do you?
Except that one person could have said that they were affiliated with the church, and so they have a direct affiliation. Possibly.
It wasn't a church. It was a school.
Anymore.
It wasn't a church anymore.
Yeah.
But that's what the argument was. It was historically a church, and they wanted to return it to that.
But so
is that the one that was emotionally?
But then the counter argument was the church no longer cared to own the property, and if it's
right. But if from what I understand from the case, I believe it was one applicant, and if it was, then, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving lawyerly advice, but I don't think they would have had.
That's actually how they term it too.
That's what I'm supposed to say. In my land use law class, that was the first words out of the guy that taught that class was everything you say, you state, you are not an attorney, and you are not giving legal advice. So I am not doing that. But I don't think she would have had standing in that case. But that's up for the attorneys to decide.
Right, you're looking like you're enjoying this a lot.
Yeah. he just likes to hear that I'm not an attorney, and
he's going to get a plaque made for your desk.
Yeah, not an attorney.
Yeah. That's the first thing Bryant learned in law school is that word.
Laureate.
No.
Law.
okay, there we go.
Law-ology, I like that.
All right.
Okay. Well, now the planning division recommends that the planning commission forward a recommendation of approval for the text amendment to sections 17.08, 17.12, 16.36, .52, .54, .56, .60, and
Too
.170
fast.
as reviewed in the staff report. You can read it on the screen.
Are there any questions for Zach at this point?
I think we did a good job.
Yeah, thanks for all the hard work with this. I know this is something, even though you're not an attorney and you don't play one on TV, you know, you did a really nice job clubbing me through all this stuff.
I do like to pretend I'm one at home. So,
Do you? Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I get dressed up and argue with my husband. So
I'm sure that makes for exciting evenings.
yes. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think in the interest of doing this the right way, we ought to open it up for any public comment. Should we check and see if anything's come in with, they might tell us to stop joking around so much.
Nothing.
Okay, let's close the public comment. All right. Yes. Did you want to talk about this more?
No,
I just wanted
to say, I'm not a lawyer, but
Mm.
Okay, thank you. We have a recommendation for approval. So back up. So Commissioner Richards has made a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendments to section 17.08, 17.12, 17.16, 17.36, 17.52, 17.54, 17.56, 17.60, 17.170 as reviewed in the staff report. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
You want to state all the ones you
Yeah, read it through.
Yeah. All right. We have a second by Commissioner Milkevich.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll pass.
Zach, why don't we do a roll call vote?
Yep. Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich.
Yes.
Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
And Chair Lowry.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Zach, your motion has been approved. Congratulations and best of luck in your in the changes.
Yes. Many more to come, I hope.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for the hard work with that. In all seriousness, really appreciate all the hard work that you and all the staff puts into making these meetings go well.
For sure.
With that, I think we could, unless there's other discussion, we could or other business, we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So we make a motion to adjourn at 7:49.
49.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7:50.
Okay, we have a motion adjourned by Commissioner Ney. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned. Thank you.